There we go. Okay.
Our pleasure to have with us in the home today. Dr. Dyer, Paul here. Dr. Dyer. Dr. Dyer is a fellow Iowan, which is really nice to have a fellow Iowan. And he's actually got his bachelor's degree from Iowa State University, a fine place, home of Ames Lab. Ames, Iowa, check it out. Yes. And he also got a master's from Iowa State University. Entomology, ecology. Everybody's favorite topic there. Sure. Yes. And then he also got a PhD from the University of North Texas. So he found his way south here and he got a PhD in biology. And he's had a blessed career doing all kinds of things. Primarily, he's been working at Procter and Gamble for 7 years, I think it was. Where he did all kinds of stuff with respect to ecology, and then he's been here at Laternal for what 6-7 years now. 7 years, and for a while he acted as the chair of the Department of Biology, and but now he's not here. Yep. Well, you guys, all right. You guys are reminded to use your cell phone like that. And you should enjoy this talk. Hopefully it'll be a good broad talk about how we as Christians should be communicating science, the Christian Polytechnic University, and the scientists in general. So welcome, Dr. Dyer. Oh, one more thing. If you want to continue the conversation after the seminar, we're going to be in the Joyce room of the Corner Cafe. So come out there and join us for lunch if you want to keep talking about these things. And if you're a student and you don't have a lunch plan, or if you're a visitor and you don't have a lunch plan, just let us know. We can cover you for lunch today. Let's give Dr. Dyer.
Well, thank you very much. I think Dr. DeBoer gave me this great title, The Pivotal Role of Communicating Science in the Christian Polytechnic University. So we'll see how well I do. So the topics I'm going to cover are many. So first is that, when we're talking about science today, we're really in a post-truth, postmodern age, and that has a huge impact externally when we're talking about science. The interesting thing also, and I think it's tied to this kind of philosophical issue, is that the public trust actually in science is declining. So that's posing some big issues then for us, because we're a Christian school. So we'll be talking about how does Christianity, science, and truth actually, how do they integrate with each other? How do they affect each other? How do we bring that into Laternal University? And then I'm going to provide some suggestions about maybe how we can kind of amp up really what we do and do well here. But then at the very end, I also really want to get your input because I think the future for us is really in your hands in many, many ways, coming up with some really novel ideas. All right. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is science in the post-truth, postmodern age. So I did a little encyclopedia work. And so I wanted to really find out really what say does the Encyclopedia Britannica say about what is the postmodern age. And it's a Western philosophy, started in the late 20th century. And it's really characterized by a broad skepticism, subjectivism, or relativism, and a general suspicion of reason and an acute sensitivity to the role of ideology in maintaining political and economic power. I think another really important quote really from Britannica was, and I think they're just kind of also hunting for their own kind of definitions here, is that there is no such thing as truth. Wow, that's a big, bold statement, but that really kind of summarizes really what we're talking about. So what does the post-truth age even mean? It means relating to a situation in which people are more likely to accept an argument based on their emotions or beliefs rather than one based on facts. Wow. So that already gives you an idea that if science is living in this type of environment, science is in trouble. So I wanted to show you some evidences of this. So I just did a quick search, and this was on stem cell research that the number of publications over the years prior to the year 2000 to present. And you'll see that in the blue dotted line that the number of publications have been increasing all the way until basically 2024. But I want you to also see what's happening on the line below, and that's the number of journal article retractions. It's actually going up as well. Why is this important? It's because people are actually publishing things that perhaps don't belong in the journal. So let me give you an example here. This is one that I've had acute, literally experience with. So it turns out that in the journal Science, which is, there's two top journals that if you get an article in Science or Nature, your career is basically made as a scientist. Well, it turns out these researchers from the University of Uppsala in Sweden published this title, and it was "Fish Eat Plastic Like Teens Eat Fast Food." So it was the article literally for that year, and probably it took another year before people tried to replicate their work, and they couldn't. And then there came an investigation from the university, and then they found out that almost all of their data was dry labbed. It wasn't real at all. And so then Science retracted it, and you can see, here's a Guardian title. The journal retracts controversial paper on the dangers of microplastics to fish. So if you actually tried to find that Science article, it's not going to be there. But the wonderful internet has a way of storing just about everything that gets done. And this is how, and plus I knew about this thing. So this is a situation where, I think we've got some scientists that were definitely doing some unethical things. And so how and why? Well, I think when you're in a postmodern situation, you can say my truth is different from your truth, period. And what that enables you to do then is to rationalize the ends justify the means. These people that were doing the research in Sweden were really anti-plastic and they were willing to do whatever it was going to take to get these plastics banned. And so they basically laid their careers on the line. Unfortunately, they lost them. The other thing is that when you use these kinds of tactics, you can use some sensational headlines. So obviously, a great title like, they're eating plastics like, teens eat junk food or something like that is a great way to get clicks, right? I think the other thing is, and this is basically an issue in most universities, and that's the publish or perish type thing. Particularly when you're looking at larger universities. Why? It's because that's what brings in the money. It also brings in notoriety. And so, again, sometimes the ends justify the means. So I want to show you a couple of charts here that shows you that the public trust in science is actually declining. So this was actually conducted by the Pew Research Center, and I want you to look at this particular chart first, the one on the left. This particular piece of research took into account survey results from, I think, 8,800 and some odd people. And it's only keeping track really from really January 2019 to really October 2023. And what I want you to see is where we start from. So the things that are in the blue indicate, that people in the poll would say they have a fair amount or a great deal of trust in science. And then on the bottom part, you'll see they have not too much or none at all in science. And as you go closer to where we are today, you'll see the number of not too much or none at all continue to it increases. And concomitantly, what that really means then is that you're going to see a decrease for basically favorable views of science. So what the Pew Research group actually did also is they wanted to see, well, how do the politics, within the United States, how do they affect this? Well, what they found out is Republicans, or those that lean towards the Republican Party in the way they think, is that they've actually had the largest drop of favorable views of science, and definitely more distrust is basically where they're at. But the Democrats are also showing the same thing. While they start much, much higher, is a greater degree of trust, you'll see that they're also in a falling situation. So what this really we can summarize it, is that it doesn't matter what this brand of science is, this is our situation. So those of you that are going to go into science, graduate, and get into a scientific career, you got to understand this is what you're going to be walking into. And so this is, I think, a warning, but it's also, I think, foretelling that we as educators here, we need to get you prepared for that kind of environment. I also wanted to kind of show you, speaking of education, the Gallup poll also did something similar. And what I'm going to show you here is just highlighted over here, is that people that have a lot of trust in the higher education, it's basically been dropping since 2015. So now we're down from 57% in 2015. So 10 years later, we're down to 36%. So this is bad. You don't trust the science, and now you don't even like the education. Okay. And so then I also looked at, since Gallup had data, I saw that they had data all the way from year 2000 to 2025. And so I put it on an Excel spreadsheet. And what do you see? You see that for the church or organized religion, I think was the question that they put, is that we're almost in like a free fall. About 60%, about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and now we're down to 36%. So here's the question. Here's one question. So if there is a growing mistrust of science, higher education, and the church, is there going to be a solution? Where are we at? And then what do we as scientists who are Christians do? Because we're educating you all. We're in the crosshairs, of a declining, three ways. So here we're going to talk a little bit about then Christianity, science, and truth. And so I want to kind of zero in on this, on the truth piece. And that is a famous statement made by Jesus, is that if you continue in my word, then you are truly my disciples, or you are truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free, or the truth will set you free. I don't know if you guys know this, but this particular end here is actually in the entranceway of the CIA headquarters. So that's really fascinating to me, because what does that mean then? The Central Intelligence Agency is actually valuing, the statements of Jesus. But I think even more is that they understand that you don't get anywhere if you don't know what truth is. So continuing on, Jesus also talks about truth in John 14. So he's in this dialogue with his disciples, and he's just got through telling them, says, you're not going to be able to go where I'm going. And so Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How do we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So for us as believers, truth is a person. which is not just a concept. So Jesus embodies so many things. And so that's one reason why I think Laterno is a very special place to be coming from. So if you consider all of these things, truth obviously is central. It's objective. It's also personal because we're talking about a person, and it doesn't waver. In other words, we're talking about there is a truth. There's not multiple truths. We also know that education is critical, and the church historically has had a huge role in education. I mean, Sunday schools were all about, trying to educate people so that way they could what? Read their Bibles. That's how that got started. So it shouldn't be a surprise then that, say, a lot of universities actually got their start being sponsored by the church. The church, so basically the big church in general, worldwide, those that really follow the Christ, are basically, we've had a huge role in science, in education. So what I want to do is I want to show you an example, what we've done in the past that I would say is really successful. But before we get there, I want to kind of show you that, or tell you that what I think makes us really, really good here, and that is obviously Laterno, the Christian Polytechnic University. I keep want to say institute, but so one, we've got really, really smart people here. Our faculty are just really top rate. So we have really renowned technical expertise. When you Google about Laterno, you quickly find out it's a deep sciencey school. So that's good. For those of us that are teachers here, Christian character is like the most important thing. We want somebody that's to be an expert, but if they don't have Christ in their life, we don't even interview them. We don't bring them in. And I think the other thing is and I think I know our fellow faculty members would agree with me, is that, we've had an excellent record. When you guys graduate from here, you're going to be successful when you leave. And why? Because you've gotten, I think, a really low student to, mentor or professor ratio. And so you're literally able to soak up, I think, a lot of that wisdom that we've obtained over our years. And so it's not a big surprise then that, our classrooms, our labs, they're all about problem solving. And so truth, transparency, honesty, integrity, these are all valued things. And these are things that, what I brag about, like when I'm talking like with potential biology students and their parents. So as an example of something that started with us in biology was during the COVID days. And this is, I think, an example of something that I would love to see in our university in the future. So during COVID, we actually engineered a 2-night workshop, or I should say presentation. And what it was, this was in 2021, was that in day number 1, we had a clinical cardiologist here in town, Dr. David Dyer. He provided his personal experience being a clinician at Longview Regional as a cardiologist and having to deal with patients dying. Their lungs are just literally a mess, because of COVID. So he really kind of came at this from a very, very personal perspective, but also a very, very scientifically rigorous perspective too. And then we had Dr. Greg Frederick. He also brought his microbiological expertise to talk about there are a lot of things that we need to be thinking about as we're, vaccinating and things of this sort. So that was day number 1. And a couple of days later, we had these 4 or 5 rather excellent presenters and people that were on a panel discussion. So, and I know that politics became huge during COVID. So I was thrilled when Dr. Barrett agreed that he would be a panelist. You also know if you've got anybody that's ended up in a hospital, they've been taken care of by nurses. So it was wonderful that our Dean of Nursing, Kimberly Quiet, provided her experiences in basically relating. It's like nurses are already outgunned. You know, we have a lot of work to do, and now we have all of these COVID patients, and this is now an issue. And then our own Dr. Fred Ballerine in biology, fortunately, he's also a microbiologist, so he could really kind of bring the science again, the things like Dr. Frederick had said, you know, a couple of days before. And then Dr. Jeffrey Quiet obviously talked about psychology. And one of the things that he said is that, you know, the cure of, you know, all this isolation, you can't be, you know, within 6 feet of people, you know, some families are just kind of like sliding the food underneath, you know, their kid's door. Because they don't want to get, you know, COVID. This isolation caused a lot of problems. And so he was really bold, and he says, we got to really ask ourselves, are we really doing this right? Because the mental fallout was huge. And then lastly, we had Dr. Jonathan Lett, and he obviously was representing, you know, theology, but I think important there is that what he said when he was talking is he said, you know, historically, like when the bubonic plague was around, the churches went to where the disease was to basically help people, knowing that they may get the Black Death themselves. And that was a great reminder about what makes, again, being a follower of Christ different from basically what the world is like. So we also do a lot of really good things like, well, you're participating in this right now. So Dr. DeBoer, he's been running these science seminars, you know, posts them on YouTube. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. I know that Dr. Hamilton is running, you know, our senior science. I don't think that's the right title. Is it the right title?
I would say senior science and faith.
And faith. Okay. I know that Dr. Ball talks about cosmology and integrates faith issues with that. So obviously these are things that we're doing today. I know I've had opportunities to work with Dr. Lett on two occasions where we really wanted to engage with our honors college folks that were really struggling with how do we handle evolution. And this is not going to go away. This is going to be around for a really, really long time. So we needed our students to really kind of engage with a variety of different types of materials and also become comfortable with the idea that, like I said earlier, the church has been so intricately involved in our education, you know, as basically humanity. And then last spring, Dr. Schaefer, the Dean of Psychology, and Dr. Lett and myself, we took on a really tough topic, and that was transgenderism. I actually had the easiest job. And that was because the biology for the sexes is pretty clear. You've got two. and I basically, yeah. But notice it doesn't say transsexualism, you know, it's transgenderism. And that's where Dr. Schaefer, you know, and Dr. Lett were really, really keenly important. But these are kinds of things that I was trying to really kind of capture is that we do these things really, really well. Now, okay, so how many of those do we have like 100,000 hits on YouTube? 1 million. How many do we need to have to be important? You know, where, in other words, people are going to see, oh, Laterno's got something new. It's out now. We're not. So I don't think we have to stay there. So what I want to say here is that if we take a step back and we say, and we know that Jesus's role in our lives is really paramount. And we know truth is really real. It's high valued. And I think the other beauty thing about being in this school is the faculty don't even all agree on a lot of these things. But I don't see, doors slamming or canceling communications. I just don't see that kind of stuff. And so what does that mean? That it means you as students, then you can actually ask hard questions and actually probably get, different types of responses from different faculty members. But it's going to be done in love, kindness, and we're going to tell you the truth as best as we know it. And I think that, again, sets, I think, our university apart. So here we come to the ideas part of, I've got a few slides here. So one of the things that, as I know, I talk with my kids. So I've got 4 adult children, and one's graduated from here. And 2 of them are nurses. I guess that doesn't even matter. But anyway, but one of the things that all 4 of them do is they're very into, podcasts, YouTubes, TikTok and all this kind of stuff. They often know stuff that or hear of people that I have never heard of before. So there is no doubt in my mind that we need to have an internet presence that we've never had before. If one of the things, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the Board of Trustees has already kind of made it pretty plain to, our university administration, then obviously faculty, is that they would really like to see within the next 10 years, LeTourneau to be the place where you can come and get, a variety of these tough topics that I'm talking about. It could be history, it could be, obviously science and faith issues, but this is where you're going to want to come. And so they already recognize this as well. So obviously then elevating our web presence is going to be really important. An idea that I have here is that we should host, really well-known people. And we need to get them here and interact with you. We need to get them interacting with our faculty. And then we need to film these things. We have awesome media capabilities here. I mean, I just get blown away every time I just see some of the professional, types of things that we put together. There's really nothing that I think our university can't produce that could go on, say like a YouTube short, or a full length interview, or have excerpts, and you just feed the, whatever the Google or whatever else search engine algorithms are. I already know there's people that know how to do this that are here on campus. So are we doing that right now? The answer really is no. Let me kind of give you some of my ideas here. These are just off the top of my head. And I got 2 more slides, and then I'm going to ask you for some input. So raise your hand if you know who the top person is. Jordan Peterson. Okay. The funny thing is, like when I talk to people my age, most people have never even heard of them. So what does that mean? It means then you've got basically a whole set of society that gets their information, because you don't see Jordan Peterson on the network news. You see him, putting together, his podcasts or being interviewed by somebody else that has a podcast and things of this sort. And he's, had these massive lecture series, even on the Bible, a 2-year project. So another one, who's heard of Wes Hupp? Raise your hand. Yeah, you will know this guy. This guy he's young. He's getting his PhD, I think, at the University of Toronto right now. He's a New Testament scholar. and he lives in Canada, but he is a brilliant basically apologist for the faith. And he is really, really astute also on all of the philosophical underpinnings of how different people kind of think theologically, which has a huge impact, as we just kind of seen with the few bit of slides that I've just shown you on how do we interpret science. Who knows anything about the Bible Project? Raise your hand. Okay. So does anybody follow up, on the podcasts of Tim Mackey? Does anybody do that? Just one? Okay. All right. So Tim Mackey's really the brains behind the Bible Project, because you've already seen all the sketches and things like that, and those are really awesome. But he's also a theologian, and lately, that particular group has been really, really interested in getting different, not just theological ideas, but they've actually interviewed this guy, Joshua Swamidass. He's a PhD, MD from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. And Joshua had published a book of how he had calculated what the genetic variability needed to have to be for there to be all of us everywhere in the world to be related to Adam and Eve. So he actually calculated this, and it's a bestseller. There's lots of assumptions that are in it, and but having that kind of dialogue, though, and by the way, we actually talked about this in that engaging evolution course. Jim Tour. So I know Dr. DeBoer brings him. How many times has he been here? 3, 4?
3 times.
3. Okay. Does anybody seen any stuff from him? Yep. Just the old people. This guy's brilliant. He's a nanochemist, and he comes actually in my life science class. I actually have them look at one of his lectures. I have to pick one of the shorter ones. I don't want them to watch the hour-and-a-half ones. He has like 11 different things that have to happen for you to basically develop life from non-life. He thinks very, very methodically as a chemist, but he's talking about biology. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And when you listen to a brilliant man like this, because I think he's got like 700 or 800 publications, he's just, stellar. And he's also relatively local to us. So he's from Rice University in Houston. Stephen Meyer, this guy's brilliant, mathematician, biologist in the past. He's the leader of Discovery Institute. He definitely has a certain perspective on how we really kind of deal with life and how we can kind of explain it and illustrate that this is really from, basically God. And then lastly, Catherine Hayhoe. She's a climate expert. She's at Texas Tech, and I know, Dr. DeBoer, you tried to get her here.
$700 an hour.
Virtually, yeah. Well, I'm hoping maybe we could get a donor. One of the interesting things about climate, this is obviously a hot topic. It's not going away.
Hot topic.
It's very, yeah. So with climate, you guys can't even look at the news. If you guys listen to the news right now, you just find that, like the current administration's like saying that we can't talk about that. So that's another fascinating thing. So I'll bet there are going to be people on campus here that are going to have very, very different perspectives on data, forecasting, all this kind of stuff. Well, she's going to definitely have her perspective. I believe her husband is a pastor, so she's also an evangelical Christian. So these are just kind of ideas really right now. We could also think about, generating some topics of interests, like how does science and Christian faith work together? Just you get some of that definitely in seminars like this, Um, another way you could do it is you could get more provocative. And that is say, talk about, creationism, 6 days, 6,000-year-old Earth versus say somebody might think, longer term, an older Earth. In between is this idea of design. And so how does that fit? And do you guys get educated enough of really understanding the assumptions that go along with each of those three? And then big things like this, transhumanism. I mean, the Borg. I mean, if you guys are into Star Trek, I mean, we're going to be assimilated into some robot in the future, right? You do know that. It's gonna happen. So we need to be ready. This one's not gonna go away, transgenderism. I mean, given that we're in this post-truth, postmodern philosophy right now, you can invent your own world and you can justify it. And what helps, people that are truly willing to go, to the lengths maybe of having, working with chemicals and maybe having operations and things of that sort. You know, I think as a Christian community, we really need to understand this a lot better. So, last slide before I'm going to ask for your ideas. Next week, we get to hear from the Mint Innovation Company. They're coming to Longview, and they're putting together the very first United States plant to really deal with, electronic waste from, basically, calculators, TVs, things of this sort, and batteries. And the whole idea here is really to try to mine some of these precious metals and not make them hazardous, and basically have it, here in Longview. Why? Well, it's an educated city, and there's obviously a pool of, you graduates, hopefully that can get a great job there. But while this was being proposed, there were a lot of big arguments going on. Where are we going to locate this thing? Is it too close to a school, too close to a church? Things of this sort. These are all zoning issues. They're legit, but it got also pretty emotional. Well, back to, the postmodern way of thinking. So we can kind of see that we're in it. We're living in it. So I'm really going to be excited to kind of see what these people actually bring. So here's my last slide. I would like your ideas. So what I did is really try to kind of provide a broad picture that would enable you then to say, and they come up with some ideas, and that is, yeah, how are we going to get our university more well-known based on kind of the technical horsepower that we have here, and not just brag about it, but advertise it, but how are we going to do that? So I'm kind of curious, what kind of ideas are popping in your head? And
I don't think it's all faculty, but I know when I first came to Turner, you could find, at least I think deans had like a 20 to 15-minute video of them on the website. And a lot of times they just talk about their faith and if they think professors, thinking on the idea of YouTube, the department videos and all that stuff, is if you did a YouTube channel or just a series where you interview different professors and okay, we're gonna have a faith in science, get a professor, interview them for 20 minutes. And that's all that professor has to do. So it's kind of shared throughout different departments, different fields. Of a virtual or long-term series, but similar to the COVID panel that we had, so that you get a bunch of different perspectives. Just have that as an ongoing series.
so you're saying like, we'll have key people in the university give basically their testimony, but then also answer a few questions about how this integration of whatever they're an expert in. Like, yeah,
I've seen some. Like that format's already been set some many years ago, we did that, using that same format for the testimonies.
okay, that's really good. Yep. What else? Yep.
think the idea of like having sample videos of like our classes, like online or even on the website, for like samples, like to see kind of what discussed in a typical class period of various classes. That way, current students can kind of look at them and kind of decide what they want to take next, or even prospective students, if it's like on YouTube or even on our website, can see like the typical what a class looks like at Laterno before even having to tour here, because I know like there's students, far away that can't necessarily tour every single college they want to see, but if they get a little snippet and then they really like that, it'll allow students to want to tour here more than just seeing the new Laterno.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've seen a few of those. We do a little bit of that, but yeah, it's not like really widely done across all the different ones. Yeah.
The COVID panel sounds really interesting. I wonder if you could do something like that, just like once a semester on some big topic that's going around that semester or over like the last year or something like that. And then, after you're finished with it, you could also post it on YouTube or something as well.
I love that idea. Yeah, I think that's probably the lowest hanging fruit to have the biggest impact. Cause then you could cause this 2 days, I mean, when we had day one, I think both Dr. Jayakar and Dr. Frederick, they had like an hour, almost an hour per lecture, and then they had question and answers. So we had probably 2.5 hours or something like that per each, and then the same thing for the panel. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe for like larger projects, like in engineering classes, maybe you could offer like just a small amount of extra credit if they're willing to have their projects recorded and shared.
Oh, tell me more. It's interesting.
I mean, if they're willing to have someone record like their presentation for the project and then post it, and they get a little bit of extra credit as motivation to be willing to do that.
Yeah, I like that. That would be great. Yeah.
I was thinking like a reality TV show. And that was
Ambitious, it's still doable.
Very cool. Yeah, I like this. That's a great idea. What else? They have any others? Okay, yeah.
I mean, kind of like the basic thing, but have students like student life that's here.
Oh, what, like student life is like? Right, right. And then when we're talking about student life, is there certain aspects that you would like to see? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, sounds real good. Yeah. I know I've seen some stuff like that, but so I think when I was looking at this title, and then I started kind of poking around. Have you guys gone on to, the LETU TV, and you looked up like Dr. Mason's presentations, when he's interviewing? Have you ever counted how many hits he's getting? He's getting really famous people, but the biggest one I've seen is maybe not even 3,000. So and it's not the subject matter, it's not the person. But we put it, just out on the Laterno website. We don't really flood, all the other different social media sites. So it's gonna be picked up very often. I just never have seen that.
I never really have either, and I've lived here my entire life. I didn't really know much about Laterno until really coming here and looking at what they had to offer and stuff, so I can pretty much agree with that. Like, I didn't know anything about it. I've lived here my entire life almost.
Yeah, I'm the same thing with does. I really haven't heard of this place. I was in 8th grade and we took a random field trip here.
Okay. Well, I remember just moving here that I would talk with different people, like just pumping gas and, you know, I just make small talk and they said, well, where do you work? Fraternal University. Where's that? It's like, I'm in Longview. You know, so yeah, so I think we definitely have a mountain of notoriety that we need to climb. But yeah, Taryn.
I think that integrating, letting other social media platforms, another thing to do is use controversial topics, just typically go viral, especially whenever it's a Christian university or a Christian institute in general. I think by doing that, you'll reach a broader audience than just Christians. You'll get a lot more attention from people outside of Christianity as well.
Yeah.
Not be good or bad, but
Well, it would probably get you to like have some provocative titles, like that are kind of more like clickbait.
that's true.
But it would enable you to at least have that opportunity though to get a message out. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Bruce.
And some of my friends at other places have blogs, and the universities help them get set up with blogs and sites and everything. And then they can link that to whatever social media they're involved with. And that just gets their ideas out there further. It's not just stuck on a Laterno site, you know,
Yeah.
somewhere that I have no clue where it is. Because I was interviewed by Laterno several years ago.
Yeah.
And people are still finding that interview somehow. I have no clue how they find it, but I can't find it. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think this was really good, and I really thank you for your participation. So this is my last formal seminar here as a full-time faculty member. And so this is, I think for the lack of a better word, a swan song. I am headed to Florida. I've got 2 adult children that live in Naples. Why there? It's like the most expensive city. And but I'm heading there because between the 2 couples that are down there, I've got 3 kids. One's got 3 grandkids. One's got some form of autism, and then we've got 2 an infant and a toddler. So they just need help in different ways, and so my wife and I are in the process of making the move. Right now, I can tell you though, I will still be connected to the school, but it'll be remotely. So I'm hoping that some of the things that we just talked about and had some ideas will be some of the things that I might be able to get involved with, because I don't have to be here to kind of get some of these types of things arranged. But I know that I will miss terribly the opportunity to get to know you. And I know that, I have a few folks that I've had, the students that have been in my classes, obviously faculty members I've worked with, and that you guys are a really special bunch. You really, really are. And I believe that with all my heart. And that's one reason why I left a job that I loved, is because I could tell even during the interview, this is a cool school. So, and then when I get to see our graduates launch well, to me, it's the proof is in the pudding. And so, and you guys taste good. All right. Thank you for coming. And then I guess you're gonna tell the one story.
The Joyce Room, the corner cafe. And I guess you don't have a meal plan, TV, we'll take care of you. And then Dr. Dyer is around, but we want to follow up with him later, tomorrow or the next day, feel free to come by as well. Let's thank him one more time. Like you next week to come early because there's a lot of community interest in the event next week. So I expect we're gonna see a lot of people from Longview community, city councilmen, and all kinds of other people, even the Longview TV people will be here next week for this very big event that we're having. So come early to get a seat and be well behaved. Hour that day, something like that. So, we'll see you all next week. All right, thank you. Have a good day.